JJK, by many fans, it's in freefall. People are losing their minds because the last 2 chapters by many fans is deemed to be some of the worst Jujutsu Kaisen content, if not the worst, that the author, Gege, Gege, however you want to say their name, has ever created. People are panicking because we only have 3 chapters left, and from here, it only looks like we're going down straight to the pits of hell. You could argue it's rightfully so, because these last 2 chapters are a mess. In many ways, undeniably, they are a mess. The last chapter, 268. Disgusting! I would say it's like a 5 out of 10 at best. It's subpar at best. And at worst, it's an easy 3 or 4. Bad. The other chapter that gets a lot of flack, 267. Wait. It's an issue, yes, but it's not an issue that folks want it to be.
What do you mean by that?
I do my live stream reactions for JJK on my Cole Requiem channel. And I definitely want to hear your thoughts on these last 2 chapters in the comment section down below. On the way down, make sure to slap that like button for your boy if you enjoy my content at large. Now, spoiler territory.
Adios.
Let's start with the obvious first. Because we only have 3 chapters left, in the last chapter, when Megumi finally awakens, this character, no. Megumi as a character will never ever reach the potential that you could argue was set up for him at the beginning of the story, because Megumi just got freed and we only have, again, 3 chapters left. So you could argue that, let's say Sukuna, when we saw him, his versions of all of Megumi's Shikigami, that could be like max potential Megumi. That includes what we saw, let's say, with Mahoraga. The problem, though, is that Megumi is not Sukuna. How Sukuna would utilize X, Y, and Z is very different than, let's say, how Megumi would utilize X, Y, and Z. Your mental is going to shape how your abilities function in some way. I hate to say it, but he's almost like in a similar spot to many of the old school Naruto characters. Characters like Rock Lee, characters like Shino, characters like Kiba, where at the beginning of the story, they had so much potential, and then because the author let them alone for so long, the potential is never realized. That's the way Megumi feels. But Megumi doesn't even get like half of what Yuji gets, and he's the secondary main character of the story. It's ridiculous.
I don't like the way.
Look, I'm not saying that Megumi hasn't gotten any love. He has. Up until Sukuna took over his body, and that's a huge chunk of time. Unfortunately, in that span, he's become potential man. That is how Megumi's story is likely going to end up, because we only have 3 chapters left.
What could have been?
Obviously, his soul kind of giving up after his sister died, and Gege or Gege showing you a more bleak side where the character couldn't mentally overcome it through sheer willpower and so on and so forth. An interesting way to take his character, for sure. But again, in the eyes of many, that wouldn't be a problem if there was more to come for the character, which, again, there's not. Now, in that same chapter, Hikari Rame.
Trash.
Tis really bad. It's undeniable. I think the reasons why folks would defend this would be, let's say, number 1, we don't necessarily care about Urame as a character for whatever reason. And then Hikari already had that insane fight with Kashimo, my boy. 2 is that we're in the middle of this crazy Sukuna gauntlet. Do we then leave the Sukuna gauntlet and focus on Hikari vs. Urame? That's a fair one. In the grand scheme of things, it is Gege or Gigi's writing flaw to have this fight go on while you have the Sukuna gauntlet. We don't even get, let's say, a flashback in time to see how that fight played out. Or let's say, for example, before the Sukuna gauntlet, he could have just focused on Urame versus Hikari. That fight ends, and then we go back in time, and then we start the Sukuna gauntlet.
Fascinating.
However, leaving the gauntlet and then focusing on Hikari versus Urame,
that ain't the way it's gonna be.
To focus on Urame and Hikari dating off screen because he likes fanboys or what the hell's going on? I mean, look, when the Super Bowl is on, there are no other major primetime sports that are on at that point in time. The Super Bowl is on. Everyone, shut up, know your role. However, this is still a fight that folks wanted to see, and you could have definitely done this on the Saturday or the Tuesday before the Super Bowl dropped. There are ways for Gege to improve that with Hikari and Urame, and that did suck. Let's get to 267. This chapter, y'all need to shut up. This chapter is nowhere near as bad as y'all think. Absolutely not. Because Nobara, Kugisaki was up for a long time to come back. And I was saying, like during my streams, there's a chance that maybe she'd come back. But it was so into the story, I was like losing hope on that. But she did come back. And again, Gege did set that up. Gigi did set that up at the end of the Shibuya incident arc. And I would argue that her return does make that arc better. Toto's partner, he does say that all I can do is just stop wounds from getting worse. That's it. Which means that if she was already dead, she would have been dead. She would have been dead. There is that convo between Itadori and Megumi where they do talk to each other about Kugisaki, like what happened to her. And then Megumi just puts his head down. And then Yuji says, oh, I see. Kind of implying that, okay, she's dead. Because why would they keep that a secret from Megumi and Yuji if she was, let's say, in a coma?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yuji and Nobara are trying to do the same prank that Gojo did with Itadori when he came back in front of the group, where he was inside that box, ta-da, I'm alive. So who's to say that they couldn't do the same thing with Nobara? Where the higher-ups at that point in time, they decided to keep Nobara's death a secret as hidden trump card against Sukuna and wait for the right time, hence why Gojo wouldn't give Sukuna's finger to Yuta or Yuji no matter what, the last one, because it was a plan that was in place with Kugisaki Nobara. And we see her where? In that same spot, like she was waiting for the right time to use her ability against Sukuna, which caught him completely off guard, which allowed for Yuji to land that final haymaker and get the job done. So those are the undeniable, I think, positives of that chapter. The negatives, though, come in the fact that we only have 3 chapters left. Nobara as a character is capped. For half of the story, she disappeared, and then she came back on a final massive haymaker on the final villain of the story. That's crazy. It's madness. It's like Sakura disappearing for the vast majority of Shippuden, and then she comes back to land a major blow on Kaguya. It's like, wait, hold on, what? These things can happen to other characters, for sure. But when you're talking about the main female lead disappears for half of the story, like unironically half of the story, that's madness. And because we only have 3 chapters left, like a Megumi, her growth, her development, all these things that could have happened, what could have been. It's stunted, it's nerfed, it's a permanent debuff to her character. In the video game that is JJK, the max level is 100. She capped out at 65. She can still do really good damage, but she'll never do as much as the level 100 dudes. In terms of her character and the growth and so on, it's the same way there. She will not be in that upper echelon ballpark in terms of character development. And then folks may say things like, well, Maki was a replacement of stand-in. Hell no.
Hell no.
No. Even though I love Robin as a character for One Piece, she is not a stand-in for Nami. Honestly, you could argue that Maki is more akin to like a Vivi. Honestly, really. But let's just say for the time being, Robin. In Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai, Metaloo is not a stand-in for Mom. It's not to say that Maki's a bad character or I hate Maki, of course not. But you're not gonna replace Hermione with Ginny from Harry Potter. It's not happening. There are different expectations when you're dealing with the main female lead of a story, and they are warranted. It makes sense to have these expectations. And that's where this chapter falls short. It's not because of the setup, it was clearly there. It makes actually a lot of sense. It's the fact that we only have 3 chapters left. So there are other things in this whole situation that make it very messy and scuffy. Like, okay, 3 chapters left. That means that the stuff involving Kenjaku, aka Brainiac Ghetto, those things about what he wanted to see won't come to pass, which makes sense. But let's say the man himself, the Heian era flashback, or even pre-Heian era, because as Kamo Noritoshi, we even see in the past he has those stitches on his skull, meaning that he probably predates even the Heian era. The convergence and all kind of stuff is one thing. You can argue we don't need it because against Sukuna. In terms of villainy, we're all set. At the same time, a lot of folks did not like how Kenjaku ended off with the whole Yuta thing, but then beforehand with Takaba. Even though I think it was fire as hell. Folks may say, King, you're being weird. Maybe. I think that folks did want to see a lot more from Kenjaku as a character because they were unsatisfied with that for his character. However, I will say this though. There is another character, another story that does not have a very robust origin story, that kind of stuff, but there's still a tremendously loved villain in their franchise and they operate in a very similar way as Kenjaku in their own story. Aizen does not have a robust, deep origin story at all. We still don't know the vast majority of what led Aizen to do what he's done in the story. Unironically, people love Aizen, and now Kenjaku, who's in a similar spot, this guy gets the middle finger. So that I think all depends on how you really view the finale of Kenjaku's whole thing with Takaba and then with Yuta. I thought it slapped. Other folks said it slapped them across the face. All right, fair enough, to each their own. Number two, what the hell is Yuji's domain expansion?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this kid's domain expansion, man. There are things based on the seasons. We do see that. The train stations, that's actually like 1-for-1 with certain Japanese locations. Okay, but what does it do? I mean, I've theorized that it has a sort of soul binding thing. What we've seen, well, let's say Gojo, when he passed away and he was envisioning quote unquote heaven or afterlife, that kind of stuff, or let's say the same realm that Sukuna met Jogo, maybe something like that, but that's my theory. That's just my theory. I don't know. I don't actually know what really happened. So maybe in these next 3 chapters, we get an actual explanation as to what happened with his domain expansion. Though, to be fair, in 265, Yuji says that he kind of did it frantically, so not even he knows what's really doing. So we just may never know, like in the center of a Tootsie Pop. The biggest thing, but also kind of like the dumbest thing too, is that folks are dunking on Sukuna. Now apparently Sukuna's a bad villain. Like, no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Yeah, he didn't have the aura that he normally had over the entire course of the story. The fact that,
Say it with your chest.
I'll be honest with you guys. All right, because now, like later in the video, I'm gonna say it. You can clip this, you can ship this, whatever. But I think that a lot of the Sukuna hate comes from salty as F Gojo fans. I am not gonna sugarcoat this, because Sukuna was studly. I mean, the fact that people whine and moan and complain, yap, oh my god, about how Sukuna summoned Maho Raga. He summoned Big Raga. He summoned Big Raga. And none of these people who are Gojo wankers complain about Gojo literally ambushing, setting up an attack with a 200% output purple sphere at Sukuna when he had other dudes there helping him prep for that move. I mean, it's like, what? Hold up. But Sukuna summons Big Raga. Oh no. Like, shut up, man. Sukuna is one of the best villains in the game. That's undeniable. How many villains have gone through a gauntlet like Sukuna has and kept on plowing through, kept on marching through? And yes, obviously, binding vows are a problem. Oh. However, that's a story problem, I would argue, not a Sukuna problem. Every time I see the word binding vow, I start having like palpitations. I start hyperventilating like Naruto did in the Kage summon, man. Oh yeah. No, Sukuna is goated to this day. Oh, well, he went out and he had no aura. Have you seen FMA Brotherhood? Have you seen Pride? And Pride got turned to a wee little baby for his true form? Huh? Father, who got stunted on by the top one, God, or the world, or the universe, or truth, however it's perceived, they went out like chumps. But them going out meekly at the end of it all doesn't change their resume to get to that point. No, Sukuna has a phenomenal resume. Even though I love Kaido and I love Maru Uchiha, and these guys have gone through hell and high water, the Gauntlet Sukuna, oi, Kavron, man. Kaido had a crazy gauntlet. Madara had a crazy gauntlet. Sukuna's gauntlet is putting them all to shame. Kaido's a great villain. Madara's a great villain. Madara actually is like the man that carried the freaking franchise on his back, broad shoulders. Oh, but Sukuna, Sukuna is, he's one of the GOATs. In terms of shonen villains, he's up there in that top echelon. Just because he went out sad doesn't mean much. I mean, my God, don't talk about going out sad. Kaido had a crazy finish with Luffy. Madara Black Zetsu, anybody? Man, what? Get that trash out of my face. Black Zetsu is far worse than this with Sukuna. It's undeniable. I can go through like the list of these great villains that at the end of the damn day to go out sad. I can, but that's okay to go out sad. That's all right. That's all right. And honestly, when I say go out sad, I just mean how he looked. He still maintained frame come the end of it and said, I'm gonna be swayed by this facade, Yuji. I'm a curse through and disappears. So even when he turns into pixie dust, Tinkerbell dust, he still maintains frame. Sukuna has done enough. He's done enough. What more do you want from this dude? He's done so much. The only way I think some folks will be satisfied is if Sukuna just won. Sukuna wins, and then we guarantee get like, let's say a JJK sequel where it takes place like 50 years later, and then all of Japan is extra effed and so on and so forth. No, it makes a lot of sense for the main villain of the story to be defeated by the main character. It was set up, albeit it's kind of a mess because of the whole, we only have 3 chapters left now, but Sukuna, I think, he's one of the goated. He's one of the goated. It is what it is. There are other things like, for example, Kenjaku and Tengen's relationship in the past. That's not really explained. What happened to the Americans that took the Japanese folks, like the one girl with the, I think her name is Rin, the one girl with the scorpion tail, like what happened to the Americans that were there and then they actually captured Japanese civilians that are also sorcerers and so on. Like maybe these things like the Fallen One, why was he given that title, the Fallen One, Angel and her stuff with Sukuna. There are certain things that I think we may or may not get, let's say in the next few chapters, who knows, but it is a mess. I won't deny that. Though is it as messy as Togashi Yoshihiro's room? No. Is it as bad as Asmongold's room? No. No. It's more like a baby playing with their food. They're flinging stuff all over the place. Milk is being spilled. Yeah, it's a mess. We can still clean up and have dinner. The story as a whole isn't going to be a net negative now because at least so far, the story is not all of a sudden now horrific like it's a 4 out of 10 story. No, that's ridiculous. Folks are overreacting, and hopefully I've explained in detail what I thought about this thing so far. So let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. Once again, if you support your boy's content, then hey boy, that thumbs up, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the flip side. Be easy, stay safe, have a nice one.
See you. Bye bye.